a weekly strategy roundtable where we talk about current market conditions and answer any questions you might have. For those of you who are new, welcome. If this is your first live event, do me a favor, type in first. Always want to welcome new subscribers. My bio is, for those of you who are new, my background is technology. I've been executive and CTO of several publicly traded companies like Options Express, Media Ocean, Ian, good morning. Since Options Express went public back in 2005, so almost 20 years ago, I decided to manage my own money, started Tradespoon about, it's going to be 14 years ago. 14 years ago. Started Tradespoon because I wanted to manage my own money, build a team of financial engineers that have PhD in finance, in financial engineering, modeling, financial modeling, and physics and math. So together we build models to help find signals, and I use these signals to manage my own portfolio, and I've been doing that on Tradespoon for 14 years. So in general, over 20 years now. Keith Harwood joined us from Options Hotline about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, and he brings a lot of experience from the floor. He used to trade on the floor, on CBOE floor, so he understands options, futures, commodities, and also has over 20 years of experience. So we bring, there's definitely a lot of education and learning, how to use the models, how to manage your portfolio, and how to rebalance your portfolio. Disclosures are very important. Please read them. Trading stock and options involve risk. If this is the first time you see the screen, I encourage you to visit optionscreening.com to understand the risk associated with trading stock and options. And, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not registered with FINRA nor SEC. I'm showing you what I do in my own account, based on my own risk tolerance level for general education information purposes only. All right, let's jump into the market and see if anything has changed. So let's sum up the week. In terms of yield, 10-year yield dropped below 4%, right? It's dropped below 4% and it's retesting 2005 lows, right? So, you can argue that this is because the inflation continues to go lower, right? And if inflation is going to continue lower, then the Fed kind of satisfied dual mandate, where the employment is, stable and inflation is trending lower. So why not lower interest rates, especially with the new Fed chair in May? Or you can argue that would be the bullish argument, and the bearish argument would be, market is overbought. Buffett indexed at historical high levels. AI is, overhyped, right? And overinvested in the infrastructure, resembling .com era. And we're heading into recession, right? Kind of 2001, 2003 recession after the .com collapse. Both arguments, you can argue both sides. Right? My daughter is in the debate team. She's talking that you need to argue both sides and consider both sides, which is very important, right? You always want to consider both sides and figure out what makes more sense, not just to you, but to majority of the people. It doesn't matter what makes sense to you. What matters is what do you think a majority of the people think, right? Because that's where the market is going to go. But nonetheless, it's a descending triangle, right? And if it drops below, 390, it could, the next level would be a 2005 low, right? And that's close to 3.5%. And I think that at that point, the sell-off could accelerate, right? Because of these concerns in the market. For now, you don't see it in the high yield, right? It's more or less stable. It is below 50-day moving average. It's sitting at the 100-day moving average. It's still not that far from 200-day moving average, but it's, at least for now, ascending 50 and ascending 200. So high yield is more, the junk bond is still more or less stable. So you don't see contagion, right? That people are concerned about or looking at on Grok. Like what are people concerned about this week? And so employment, right? Employment data, initial claims were better than expected, so employment continues to be stable, right? Then the new tariffs, right? The Supreme Court decision last Friday, and now the new tariffs. I forgot what the law numbers Trump administration is using to institute these new tariffs, but there's uncertainty about them, right? And then AI, right? That spills over not what about private? What about into financial side? What about private? Right. Let's see what it says. Jeff, welcome back. Right, so big owl, right? Capital redemption, hold, asset sales, right? Most visible trigger, kind of headline news, but it spills over into KKR, right? And Blackstone Group, right? So you have sharp pullbacks, and even in JP Morgan, regional banks, it's spilled over across the entire financial sector, right? If you look at XLF, we are making new lows. I mean, not new lows, but we're actually holding on to the lows, so that's good. But we are below 50-day moving average, below 200-day moving average, and kind of continues to sharp pullback in some of the financial names. UBS warning worst case default rates could hit 15%. Best case scenario upward forecasting private credit default rates can surge up to 15% from 13% in February if AI causes aggressive disruption among borrowers. Right? The AI-driven changes is a new risk layer with software accounting for a large portion of private loans. Amplify fear of software apocalypse, spreading contagion. Contributed to renewed silence in private credit linked stocks and BDCs. Rising shadow defaults. So that contagion is definitely spreading. You can see it in today's price action, right? But banks are down 2%, software names are down. So that concern continues to be there. VIX, I mean, in the range, it's not making new highs, kind of 22 highs or 23 highs. This is today, and then QQQ still sitting below 50-day moving average, below 100-day moving average. 50-day moving average is about to cross 100-day moving average, and 20-day moving average is sloping down, and 50-day moving average is sloping down. So technology has been underperforming, right? It continues to underperform, and now that spreads into the banks, and it also spreading into regional banks, right? So IWM continues to be under pressure as well today. Bitcoin, the good news is that Bitcoin did not make new lows this week. Let's assume it's going to close at this rate. And the software names, right? We have some earnings from CRM, from Zscaler, and so far, the lows we're holding on to the lows, right? On these kind of leading indicators of this contagion. So that's the good news, right? That would be the bullish argument. Still pretty horrible bearish price patterns and very weak rebound, but we're not making new lows, and we're trying to identify bottoming process, right? And usually during these bottoming process, that means there is little room to the downside in these software names, but there is a lot more room to the upside, right? If I have to guess what's going to happen in the next few months, then I think there is more room to the upside than there is room to the downside, right? So that's kind of silver continues to be volatile, right? Kind of grinding higher. And so how do we help, right, on Tradespoon? So on Tradespoon, we have different models, right? So you can look at stock forecast toolbox if you want to determine what the support and resistance levels for spiders for today. 690, consider going short. 677, consider going long, right? Or if you're buying, you want to buy close to 680, 677, and if we get to 690, 692, you want to trim your positions. For the next 10 days, you can also see prediction for the next 10 days, same thing, right? At 695, probably market is overbought, and until we break out, then you would trim your positions. And if we get to 675, this is your 677, this is where you go long. And you can do this analysis on stocks, futures, you can do it on any ticker symbol, and you can type in NVIDIA and basically say, what does the model think about NVIDIA? Right? I mean, it thinks it's oversold because of the earnings. Model doesn't take into consideration earnings, so I would argue that you have to be careful when you interpret this information. But nonetheless, it's based on the price action, forget the earnings, it is oversold. It doesn't see a lot of momentum basically below 184. But we're already at 180, and in the live training room, I said that if we break through 180, we can go lower, right? Model needs a couple of days to adjust to the reaction to the earnings. And so far, it's been negative, right? So you have to look at positioning data, where the open interest is, and make a decision. So that's stock forecast toolbox. There is a company screener. You can go to company screener. It gets updated the first of every month. So next week it will update. And where can you invest? Well, banking was a good place to invest on February 1st. Not anymore. It's been under a lot of pressures. But industrials, conglomerates, still in strong uptrend. Drugs, Celgene, biogenesis is still in strong uptrend. Semiconductors are leading the market. Energy is leading the market. So these are, you can actually look on ETFs and look at, biotech is in strong uptrend. Alternative energy is in strong uptrend. Leverage ETFs. Mining, right? Still gold miners are actually close to all-time high, despite the volatility. Right, it's actually breaking out. So gold miners are actually breaking out. Right? Silver is underperforming, but gold and gold miners at least are breaking. Not gold, right? Not gold, but gold miners are doing well. So that's what you can use to come up with the sector, and then it will update it on the first of every month. These long-term predictions, and then you can decide how you want to rebalance your portfolio in March. And 6 months predictions or that scanner, it only updates on the first of every month. It's long-term predictions. And the model sees, okay, we could get to 170, 167. So model basically says, which I agree, but it still thinks it's an uptrend, and the market is, overreacting, right? There's nothing wrong with NVIDIA, very strong earnings, and if you're a long-term investor and you're thinking about how much room to the downside versus how much room to the upside, you might want to consider potentially adding to some of these long positions. So I like stock forecast toolbox. It's a model, I'm very proud of it. We have patent pending on that model, so on the process of how we find it, how we the data we select, and how we train the models. So that's exciting. Company screener, I think, is great. You have short-term forecasts. So, and you can manage portfolio, right? You can put your symbols. So today, model actually comes up with the signals, right? It's not this model; it's a combination of several models. So it's not just based because active trader could say bullish, but model says bearish. But like CVS, right? So healthcare, it picked a stock. You can see a strong uptrend in the past few days from this over-exaggerated rebound drop. So it picked healthcare, CVS. Right, then you can go in and say, okay, I'm going to watch CVS, Ford, and Schlumberger. Right? So, it gives you predicted low, predicted high. CVS 78 maybe doesn't make sense to chase the market. But Ford, if we get to 14, maybe it makes sense to go long. Or Schlumberger at 51.14. Okay, maybe that's the time to buy Schlumberger if you want to be diversified and add your position, in the energy name. So that's my, favorite tool to use and model. when I trade, right, in Elite Circle, you can actually see my trades, all of my positions, right, and all of my trades, right? So we were talking about QQQ put spread as a hedge. So I use these signals in Active Trader and in Weekly and Monthly Trader to come up with what trades I'm going to do, right? So this week, Weekly Trader, Halliburton, right? So on Sunday, the model generated a signal by Halliburton. So I actually, if you look, I have a Halliburton position. Right? If you go in here and type in Halliburton, so I don't trade all of them, but I did get into a Halliburton, right? These models give me signals, and then if I don't have energy, then okay, I'm buying Halliburton. But if I'm already launched on Beige, like in Active Trader, then maybe it doesn't make sense for me to buy it. But for somebody else, it does, right? Because I don't have exposure to energy, and energy has been strong this year. Maybe it makes sense to participate. Live Nation, right? If you don't have consumer discretionary, maybe it makes sense for you to buy Live Nation, right? You would buy it on Monday, and I think it's same level or better. Or Amgen, right? Amgen, right? If you don't have exposure to biotech had a strong outperformance. Okay, so maybe you buy Amgen, right? You come in on Monday, you buy Amgen, and that would be how you would build your portfolio. You can participate live trade if you want to know, well, what if Amgen gaps down? What if it gaps up? When do I enter? If you don't have a solid trading plan, right? You're not a mechanical trader. You're not a disciplined trader because you haven't done this long enough, right? And you need help, then I would go with Elite Circle, right? I would join Elite Circle. You have Keith, who's been trading for 20 years. He's a market maker. He's a very deep knowledge in mathematics and how options work. And also, so he manages live trading, and I manage live trading. So you can see all of the recordings, right? So it's a great way to learn and have signals. And then if you need help with trading plan, he can help you build trading plan. He does actually one-on-one consultation. I think it's a rare opportunity to have somebody of his. It's not just a college graduate that I hired and doesn't understand what an option is, right? Our customer support staff, even though they're great, but they are not market makers. They don't have deep knowledge of options. Our bot has deep knowledge of options, so try it out. So this guy does know deep knowledge of options, but Keith can, bots will not replace Keith. Hopefully, at least not in the next few years. Maybe eventually it will, along with me, but not yet. Not yet. So you can schedule customer support, right? Spend 25 minutes talking to Keith. I think this is the very good use of your time if you haven't done this before, and it's free, right? That's probably the best part, that it's free. And he can help you navigate current market conditions and help you build trading plan if you don't have one, and answer some of these questions, right? How do you use Active Trader? What's the best use of Weekly Power Trader? Obviously, we do have recordings. So I encourage you, if you're serious about trading, good morning, Ian, how are you? You do want to watch these recordings, right? They're free, right? Before you go to sleep, you're bored, you want to listen to Vlad with his Russian accent or Keith without the accent. Just look at these webinars and fast forward, watch at least 7 times, right? It takes 7 times to internalize the information. So listen 7 times and it will help you navigate market volatility, right? So live trading room recordings, Elite Circle, you can see all of the trades that I'm doing, all of the positions that I'm doing. If you want to see, okay, how do I hedge? Okay, there's a QQQ put spread. Maybe, if you're concerned that this year lows will not hold, then the market, if the QQQ drops below 590 and you're long the market, then you either close your portfolio, which you probably don't want to do entire, but you want to hedge, right? You want to hedge, right? If we take out the 580 level, right? So far we're still at 2026 lows. But if we take out December lows and October lows, then that would be an issue for QQQ. And nobody can tell you with 100% certainty that we will not take out the 580, right? If somebody tells you we will not, for sure, I'm not sure where they're getting their information, but most likely it's inaccurate information. You can assign certain probability. It's 20% probability, 30% probability, 60. We can argue about, but there's nothing 100% probability. So if you have your, life savings, you want to at least consider hedging, right? Small amounts, depending on your risk tolerance level. So that's elite circle. So you have elite circle, you have stock forecast toolbox, you have these signals, active trader, weekly trader, right? If you want to buy Amgen, on weekly trader, it looks for 2.5% move, right? So from 370, you take 370, 2.5%, about $8, right? And the idea is to split the trade into two, right? Especially if it's Amgen, pretty volatile name. I would buy, either or Fred. Welcome back, Fred. You sell put spread if this is your favorite strategy, right? Fred likes to collect premium. He looks for high probability of success trades, right? And he, maybe low return on capital, but high probability of success trade or high year. So then you put half of your trade, on Monday when the signals get published. This weekly trader, monthly trader gets published on Sunday. You put a put spread, and then if it drops 1-2%, then maybe you put that second half of your position. And if it's 2.5% down, if it went from 370 and dropped $8, okay, then you're out, right? You're out. You move on to the next trade. So that would be how you would use weekly and trader. Fred, your access should be restored, and you should have got an email from Alex. So let me know if it works or not. But you should have access to Elite Circle now. And then you can, if you want leverage, you can go to weekly trader. You can go to options, click on view, and then you will be able to, same trades, but leverage, obviously, right? You could have, on Monday, if you bought Halliburton single call, higher return, not restore, worked once, then not work. That doesn't make sense, not restore, worked once. If it worked once, why would it? Yeah, reply back to Alex. I'm not sure, but he sent you an email like after live trade, so half an hour ago. So he said that the name is misspelled. The email is misspelled. So maybe it's the issue is what email you're using. But let me see what he say. And save the password using the wrong email. There's optionline.net and there is option. Option was misspelled. So try optionline.net with I and without, or PTON. Like one of them was misspelled. So maybe that's the issue. But you replied to him already. Okay, we'll see. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, it is a PTON. Okay, so maybe he'll restore a PTON. So sorry. All right. What was I talking about? Okay, so then you can trade options, right? That gives you leverage. So that's active trader, weekly trader, and monthly trader. Stock forecast toolbox. These are the tools. If you have trading plan like Fred, you've been doing this long enough and managing your money or others, friends and family, then you do use the tools. If you want to know what Keith and I are doing, then I would suggest elite trading center. Fred, we're good. We're good. I do have ADD a little bit, and I'm jumping, but I want to make sure it works for you. But anyway, so elite circle. You can do premium portfolio. This is just option spreads like Halliburton, right? You go to premium, you say, Vlad, I have a full-time job. I don't have time for this. Okay, weekly power. On Sunday, I want to put on the trade and forget about it, right? Okay, you can't forget about it. You still have to manage it on at least once a day. Look at it. markets are volatile. So sorry about that. But that's something to consider. Right, and that's where the Halliburton trade, you can use the spread with details, or you can just buy stock or buy call, or like Fred, you can sell put spread. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. We have a lot of people: Andre, BJ, D, Ed, Fred, Ian, Jeff, Kevin, Robert. Thank you for joining. Consider joining either premium service or elite service. If stock trading, don't be just robo-invest. We have a lot of free content: YouTube channel, event recordings, newsletters, free newsletters with weekly signals. So see if you can join. Robert, thank you, and that will be great. Have a great weekend. Keith is doing closing bell today. Maybe try to join closing bell today, or I'm gonna do Monday. Get live trading. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend. Spend some quality time with friends and family, and I'll see you guys shortly. Thank you.